Life can change in a single moment. For Mason, that moment came when he had to choose between his future and saving a stranger. Living on his last dollars, Mason was rushing to a job interview that could pull him out of poverty. Then he heard a child scream. Through the heavy rain, he saw a small boy frozen in fear as a car sped toward him. Without hesitation, Mason missed his once-in-a-lifetime interview to save the child. Hours later, a black luxury car pulled up beside his worn-down apartment. A mysterious man stepped out, holding an envelope that would turn Mason's act of kindness into something beyond his wildest dreams. Hi everyone, welcome to Mystic Tales. Today I'm excited to share a new story with you. Mason sat at his small kitchen table, counting the few dollars left in his wallet. His tiny studio apartment felt colder than usual. The heating had been acting up again, but he couldn't afford repairs. At 23, he was in his final year of college, working part-time at a local diner to pay his bills. "Just $200 left until next month," Mason said to himself, rubbing his tired eyes. His phone showed 3 missed calls from his landlord. The rent was already 2 weeks late. The morning light crept through his worn curtains. Mason had been awake since 4 a.m., preparing for the most important interview of his life. The position at Anderson Financial would pay enough to help him finish college and support his sick mother back home. Mason ironed his only suit carefully. It was slightly faded but clean. He had bought it secondhand last year for his first job interview. The pants were a bit loose now. He had been skipping meals to save money. His phone buzzed. It was a text from his mother. "Good luck today, honey. I know you'll do great." Mason smiled. She had been raising him alone since he was 10, working 2 jobs until her health declined. The weather forecast showed heavy rain. Mason checked his watch. He needed to leave early to catch 2 buses to reach downtown on time. His old car had broken down months ago and repairs were out of the question. Walking down the street, Mason clutched his resume folder close to his chest, protecting it from the rain. The first bus was running late. His anxiety grew with each passing minute. The interview was at 9 a.m. sharp. Finally, the bus arrived. Mason found a seat near the window, reviewing his prepared answers one last time. The second bus would drop him 3 blocks from Anderson Financial. He had mapped the route perfectly. The rain grew heavier as Mason got off at his stop. He had 20 minutes to walk those 3 blocks. Perfect timing. Other people hurried past, hidden under umbrellas and raincoats. Mason's suit jacket was getting damp, but he didn't mind. He was 2 blocks away when he heard it. A child's scream cut through the sound of rain and traffic. Mason turned to see a small boy, no more than 6, frozen in fear on the crosswalk. The walk signal had changed. A car was approaching, fast, its driver distracted by a phone call. Mason's heart stopped. The interview was just minutes away. His future, his mother's medical bills, everything depended on this morning. But that little boy stood there, paralyzed with fear, his small backpack bright red against the gray morning. Time seemed to slow down. Mason could see the office building ahead, its glass doors promising a better future. Then he looked back at the boy. There was no one else close enough. No time to think. No time to choose. Mason dropped his resume folder and ran. Mason sprinted through the rain. His dress shoes slipped on the wet pavement as he raced toward the boy. The car was getting closer, its driver still looking down at the phone. "Hey buddy, I got you," Mason called out, trying not to scare the child more. He reached the boy just in time, scooping him up and carrying him safely to the sidewalk. The car sped past, its driver oblivious to what had nearly happened. The little boy was shaking. His name tag from school read Tommy. His backpack was soaked and tears mixed with raindrops on his face. "Are you okay? Are you hurt anywhere?" Mason asked, kneeling down to check for injuries. Tommy shook his head. I got scared. The light changed too fast. I was going to school." "Where are your parents?" Mason asked, looking around. The street was busy with morning traffic, but no frantic parent was in sight. "Daddy drops me at the corner. I walk 1 block to school with other kids," Tommy said, pointing to his elementary school visible down the street. "But today, I was late. The other kids already went." Mason checked his watch. 9:10 a.m. His interview chance was gone. He felt his stomach sink, but looking at Tommy's frightened face, he knew he'd made the right choice. "Let me walk you to school, okay? We'll make sure you get there safely," Mason said. At the school entrance, a worried teacher was standing outside. Her face showed relief when she saw Tommy. "Tommy, we were about to call your father," the teacher said. "What happened?" "This man saved me from a car," Tommy said, his voice steadier now. The teacher turned to Mason. "Thank you so much. You must be drenched. Please, come inside for a moment." Mason politely declined. "I need to get going. Just make sure Tommy's okay." Tommy hugged Mason's legs. "Thank you for saving me." Walking back in the rain, Mason picked up his ruined resume folder from a puddle. The papers inside were destroyed. He sat at a bus stop, his suit soaked, and called Anderson Financial. "I'm very sorry, but I had an emergency," Mason explained to the receptionist. "Would it be possible to reschedule?" Mr. Peterson was very clear. "No reschedules for missed interviews," she replied firmly. Mason thanked her and hung up. He had just enough bus fare to get home. His phone showed another missed call from his landlord. In his apartment, Mason changed out of his wet clothes. He would need to pick up an extra shift at the diner to make up for the lost opportunity. As he hung his suit to dry, someone knocked on his door. Mason opened his door to find a tall man in a dark suit. Despite the rain, his appearance was immaculate. Behind him, through the hallway window, Mason could see a black car parked outside. "Are you Mason Parker?" the man asked. "Yes, that's me," Mason replied, suddenly conscious of his damp hair and old teeth. "My name is Richard Bennett. My son Tommy is the boy you saved this morning." The man's voice was warm but professional. "May I come in?" Mason hesitated, then opened the door wider. "Sorry about the mess. I wasn't expecting company." Richard glanced around the small studio apartment. His eyes took in the dripping suit by the window, the stack of textbooks on the floor, and the small kitchen table covered with job applications. "Tommy told me everything," Richard said. "The school called right after you left. I checked the traffic cameras to find out who you were." Mason shifted uncomfortably. "Anyone would have done the same." "No, Mason, not everyone would miss a job interview to save a stranger's child." Richard pulled out his phone. "I made some calls. Anderson Financial, right?" Mason nodded slowly. "Yes, but it's fine. I'll find something else." "I'm the CEO of Bennett Technologies," Richard said. "We're a Fortune 500 company. Anderson Financial handles some of our accounts. That's how I knew where to find you." Mason's eyes widened slightly. He had seen Bennett Technologies in the news. They were a major tech company. "I understand you're in your final year of college, studying business management," Richard continued, "and you work part-time at a diner to support yourself and help your mother with medical bills." "How did you?" Mason started. "I believe in knowing everything about someone who saves my son's life," Richard replied. "I also know you've maintained a 3.8 GPA despite working 30 hours a week." Mason sat down at his kitchen table. Richard took the other chair. "I'm not here to offer charity, Mason. I'm here to offer an opportunity," Richard said. "We have an executive training program at Bennett Technologies. It's very competitive, but I think someone with your character and work ethic would be perfect for it." "Sir, I appreciate the offer, but," Mason began. "The position includes full benefits, starting at $70,000 a year, with a signing bonus that should cover any immediate expenses," Richard continued, "plus tuition reimbursement for your final year." Mason felt his hands shake slightly. That kind of money would change everything. His mother's medical bills, his rent, his education. "Why would you do this for me?" Mason asked quietly. Richard's professional demeanor softened. "When I saw the traffic camera footage, you didn't hesitate for a second. You chose my son's life over your own future. That's the kind of person I want in my company." The next morning, Mason sat in the Bennett Technologies lobby. The building was impressive, but not overwhelming. Employees walked past in business casual attire, greeting each other warmly. Sarah, the HR director, met Mason at exactly 9 a.m. "Mr. Bennett told me about your background. Let's go through the program details." In her office, Sarah explained everything clearly. The training is 6 months. You'll rotate through different departments to learn our operations. We can work around your remaining college classes. Mason reviewed the contract carefully. The terms were fair and straightforward. The salary and benefits were real. Not too good to be true, but life-changing for him. "When can I start?" Mason asked. "How about next Monday?" Sarah smiled. "That gives you time to give notice at your current job." Mason called the diner during his lunch break. His manager, Mike, was understanding. "You're a good worker, Mason. You deserve this break." That evening, Mason called his mother. Her voice was tired, but happy. "I always knew good things would come to you, Mason. You've worked so hard." "Mom, I can help with your medical bills now," Mason said. "And you won't have to worry about my tuition anymore." "Just focus on doing well at your new job," she replied. "I'm so proud of you." The weekend passed quickly. Mason used part of his signing bonus to buy 2 proper suits and work clothes. Nothing flashy, just professional basics from a department store. Monday morning, Mason arrived early. The security guard, Bob, greeted him with a smile. "New executive trainee? Let me show you where to get your ID badge." His first day was busy but not overwhelming. His mentor, David, was patient and helpful. "Everyone starts somewhere," David said. "Just ask questions and take notes." During lunch, Mason sat alone in the break room, reviewing his morning notes. A familiar voice surprised him. "Can I sit with you?" Tommy asked, holding a small lunchbox. Richard stood behind him, smiling. "Tommy wanted to bring you lunch on your first day," Richard explained. He made the sandwich himself. Tommy placed a slightly squished peanut butter sandwich on the table. "Dad says you're going to work with him now." "That's right," Mason said, accepting the sandwich gratefully. "Will you teach me business stuff too?" Tommy asked. Richard laughed. "Let's let Mason learn the ropes first, buddy." After lunch, Mason returned to training with renewed energy. The afternoon focused on learning the company's basic systems. Everything felt real, practical, achievable with hard work. 6 months passed quickly. Mason excelled in the training program, earning respect through his work ethic rather than his connection to Richard. He moved to a better apartment, closer to both work and his college campus. One morning, Mason sat in Richard's office for his final evaluation. The wall calendar showed it was exactly 6 months since that rainy day. "Your mentors have all praised your performance," Richard said, reviewing the reports. "David says you're one of the most dedicated trainees he's seen." "I wanted to prove you made the right choice," Mason replied. "Already did that on day 1, Richard said. "But you've gone beyond expectations. We'd like to offer you a permanent position in our financial planning department." Mason accepted the offer. The salary was fair for an entry-level executive position. His mother had cried when he paid off her medical bills last month. That evening, Mason walked through the lobby, nodding to Bob, the security guard. A small voice called out to him. "Mason, wait!" Tommy ran up, holding a card. His father followed behind. "What's this?" Mason asked, opening the handmade card. "It's for your graduation next week," Tommy said. "Dad says you finished college." Mason smiled. His final semester had been challenging, balancing work and classes, but he had maintained his GPA. "We'd like to take you to dinner to celebrate," Richard said. "Your mother, too. I spoke with her yesterday. She's coming into town for your graduation." At dinner that weekend, Mason watched his mother chat with Richard about Tommy's school projects. She looked healthier now, less worried. "I never thought that morning would change everything," Mason said quietly. "Life has a way of rewarding kindness," his mother replied. "But you earned this, Mason. Every bit of it." Tommy tugged at Mason's sleeve. "Can you teach me about stocks now? Dad says you're really good at it." "Sure, buddy. We can start with the basics," Mason laughed. Later that night, Mason stood in his new apartment. His diploma would arrive soon. His mother was sleeping peacefully in the spare room. His desk held family photos next to work files. He thought about that rainy morning, the split-second choice that changed everything. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. He still worked hard, faced challenges, and had much to learn. But that moment of kindness had opened a door to opportunities he never imagined. Mason's phone buzzed. It was a message from Richard. Meeting tomorrow at 9, bringing Tommy's lunch again, he insists. Mason smiled and set his alarm. Tomorrow was another day to prove that simple acts of kindness could change lives, one small moment at a time. Loved this story? Tap that like button and subscribe to Mystic Tales for more. Let us know how this story made you feel with a single word in the comments.